Welcome to another episode of Finding Finland, the podcast where we talk about all things Finland with your host, Rudy Owens. Okay, good morning. This is Rudy Owens, host of Finding Finland podcast, and I'm very excited today to talk to my guest, Jack Steinmann. Good morning, Jack, from Portland, Oregon.
And I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Great. Nice that you could join us. So I found you, so just a little bit about this. I found you just because I'm recently was in Finland and I'm really excited. I've done 2 trips in the past year, very excited about everything that is associated with the benefits of traditional Finnish saunas. And for those who don't know about saunas, that is what is considered a steam bath. There are different saunas around the world. Estonia has them. They're the Russian banyas. Those are the ones that are most widely known around the world. But you, I found you because you had done a presentation focusing on Finnish saunas, and you made a presentation, I believe it was that on May 24th or May 25th? I'm sorry, February 24th or 25th?
Yeah, the Finlandia Foundation sponsors National Sauna Week.
Yep.
And there are some events specific to Hancock, Michigan.
Right.
And Hancock is the nesting place of Finnish-America.
Right.
Hancock's a small town, it's like population of 4,500 people.
Right.
But if you throw a rock, you might hit a Finn. So
okay, gotcha. So you were there for sauna. It was Sauna Week, and you were making a presentation or to the community, and it was a presentation that was highlighting basically a model, a vision for development in the community for a community-run, community-led, community-oriented sauna. And the reason why I'm interested in this is because where I live in Portland, Oregon, there's no such thing. We have saunas, but they're all run as private businesses. Some of them are sort of goofy, like they're they tailor the one offers vitamin C showers after you do your infrared sauna, which is nothing at all related to what a Finnish sauna is like, which is a place where people gather, they commune, they have a healthy benefit of sweating, cooling down, and interacting. And that's located all over Finland with 3 million saunas. So that's the Finnish sauna. I live in Portland where there's no such thing. And I love the idea. And the other reason is because my great-grandparents are from Hancock, Finnish immigrants. So I'm very just interested in this. So tell us about what you did and then how you got, interested in this concept of a Finnish sauna for this place, which you've identified as like sort of the cradle of Finnish immigrant experience in Michigan.
Well, it's not just me. It's Hancock is home to the Finnish-American Heritage Center. Excuse me. And that's sort of a repository of thousands and thousands of pieces and artifacts relating to the Finnish-American immigrant experience.
Right.
It's a national treasure, not just a regional treasure, but
Yep.
it's housed in a fairly small building, and it's hard to get at some of that stuff. Researchers come there from across the country to check it out. And so you'd think that if you're going to find a public sauna anywhere in the upper Midwest, that would be ground zero, would be Hancock. And as it turns out, it's not. There is no public sauna in Hancock. And in fact, if you want to find a public sauna, you have to keep going north. You have to pass through Hancock and keep going north into the Keweenaw, which is about as far north as you can get into Lake Superior without going.
And just let's interrupt quickly. So for folks who don't know the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, there's the Upper Peninsula, which sort of is shaped like this, and then there's a thumb, which sticks up here, and that's Keweenaw, right? So there's Hancock and Houghton that are separated by the drawbridge.
That's right. The western Upper Peninsula, the Hancock and Houghton, I think comprise the third snowiest city in the country, and Houghton is the more prosperous of the two towns. It's on the south side of the shore.
Yep.
And it's the home to Michigan Tech University, where, for example, my uncle uh, learned his ways and went on to be a chemist at 3M for almost 40 years. I mean,
Okay.
it's a happening place. The university has an enrollment of over 8,000 students.
Wow. Yeah, I noticed in the population census that there's a large bulge of young people. So some of those students must be living in Hancock, right? So
Yeah.
you have a disproportionate number of young people there between 20 and 24 in
Yep.
Hancock proper. So you have this population base of young, and then you have, I checked the census, so it's about, I think, 1 out of every 5 people is 65 and older. So you have young and old living together in these two communities.
And I don't mean to suggest that there isn't access to sauna in that neck of the woods. There certainly is, but it's people's homes.
Yes,
It's not a public offering.
right.
Whereas in Minnesota, there's this explosion right now. It's almost, you'd say it's a fashion or a fad or a trend, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon, of public sauna offerings. I think there's maybe at least 20 within the Twin Cities area, or maybe you'd have to go outstate for a couple of them, but there's a lot of there's a lot going on in Minnesota, and yet you go into the Keweenaw Peninsula and you'll find two great options way north of Hancock and Houghton, which is
Okay.
fine. You've got to drive over an hour to get to them, and they're great. But to me, it's a big gaping hole that Hancock doesn't have a public sauna offering for any number of reasons. And I can talk a little bit more about what problem I'm proposing to solve for.
Well, I would just love if you could give just sort of a short description of you gave this wonderful presentation. I got a peek at it. It was awesome, by the way. Nicely done. You talked about the cultural heritage of the sauna, recognized by UNESCO as a global cultural heritage practice or facility or combination cultural living cultural system, right? And then you talked about Hancock as well as a nesting place of Finnish-American and gave some profiles as well. And then you really, really leaned into the concept of authenticity for a community sauna there. So can you give a bit of description by what you shared and what you meant by that?
Well, when I think of sauna, I think of Finnish sauna or Estonian sauna, where you're in a wood room and it's heated. It's a dry heat. It's heated to between 180 and up to 210 degrees
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit, not centigrade. Good point. And you have a heat source, which is either a wood-fired stove or perhaps it's an electric heater.
Hmm.
I won't talk about infrared because I think there are a few people would argue that infrared sauna is a legitimate uh, adjunct to what I'm talking about. But in any event, it's the water, the act of throwing water on the hot rocks that creates the steam.
Right.
And I'm
And let's
terrible at
tell people what the steam is called. Can you say it?
you. I'll have you say it first, and
Okay,
then I'll.
so when you toss, just for our folks who don't have familiarity, when you toss the water on the hot rocks that are inside of a sauna, it creates this wonderful gassing, steamy effect, and that's called lull.
Yes, and I'm not going to even try to compete with your
The
pronunciation of that.
Americans would probably call it loily.
Yeah, well, because that's the way it looks like it's pronounced by the
Correct.
spelling.
Yep. So so you were talking about that as the authentic sauna.
Yeah, I mean, um, and so I'm not talking about, like a steam room at the athletic club. I'm talking about, a place where it's key to be able to throw water on the rocks.
Yep.
And that steam, the quality of the steam, it's like when you're done with a sauna in Finland, the first question you might be asked is, well, how was the lulu? What was the quality of it? Because the quality of it makes a big difference.
Yep.
And there's the wood-fired sauna, and then there's the smoke sauna, of which
Right.
there are no operational examples in the United States right now.
And that's called,
It's called Savusauna,
thank you.
and the quality of that humidity that comes off of those stones is different.
Hmm.
You know, there's studies about which are not confirmed, but speculation that in a smoke sauna, the ions that are coming off in the steam are negatively charged rather than positively charged. You know that effect after a thunderstorm where the
Yep.
air has
Yep.
that freshness and
Sure.
invigoration to it?
Yep.
And that's what users of smoke saunas claim to feel too, is that they spend more time there because the more time they spend it there, the better they feel.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
So
uh,
that
there,
was part of your pitch. You were mentioning the combination, like in a sauna experience, that you were in a concept could include both types of experience.
you know, there's no precedent in right now for building a smoke sauna in the U.S.
Gotcha.
Um, the process might involve in educating the local city, in this example, Hancock, about how to do it safely,
Yep.
because there are, I think the joke goes that there's two kinds of smoke sauna: the ones that have burned down and the ones that will burn down.
Right.
Because if you don't build them properly, they can be a fire hazard. They have to be a certain distance from any other structure.
Sure.
And if you don't maintain one that's built properly, you could still burn down. So you've got to do it right, or else you can't do it at all. And frankly, the bar is very high to make that happen. So in Minnesota, there, like I say, there's 20 at least public sauna offerings. None of them are smoke sauna.
Gotcha.
They're wood fired, or they're electric, or they're
And
pop.
when you say public, that means a member of the public could come to a place, pay for its use, and enjoy the benefits of a sauna, um,
Yeah, yeah.
themselves or with others.
As opposed to a backyard sauna where
Yep.
if
Yep.
if you have the guest over, they can use our sauna, but it's not a paid situation. And um, John Peterson in Minnesota was the founder of the 612 Sauna Society.
Okay.
I want to say this was at least 10 years ago, where he built a mobile sauna and would set, do a residency. It's like, okay, I'm going to do a week here at this certain location in the Twin Cities,
Yep.
and we're going to put on sessions, and we'll build a fire outside the trailer and put up some chairs and come on down.
Yep.
And he sort of kickstarted what's been happening in Minnesota.
And for folks who are listening, that just Google that, that will pop up, and then you can get some really cool images
Yeah,
and videos and social media. I even saw one of Jesse Diggins, who had spotted, I think, one of their mobile saunas in the Twin Cities and commented on it, and that went quasi viral too. So it's gotten a lot of buzz.
I can just drive across town and drive by. Oh, what's that over there? Oh, it's a trailer sauna. I've never seen it before. It's like there's a lot of interest and a lot of enthusiasm, and it's driven by um I think it's driven by any number of things. One is a certain demographic it really appeals to.
Hmm.
Let's say between 20 and 30,
Yep.
is very interested in ways to get together and have fun and spend time together. In other words, community, which is different than like going to a bar. It's like what other things that I can do that are different than um, uh, the opportunities I have before me. And so, in an increasingly secular society, there's a very strong pull for communal sauna, and also it's fun, and and you feel better after you've done it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna like I pulled up while before we started. There's a very well-known researcher in Finland. His name is Jari Laukkanen, and Jari's stuff is quoted by all of these evangelists of sauna as one of these sort of best researchers who's pulling together all of the medical research, which is fact-based and science-based, and it's talking about it's associated with decreased risk of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, dementia, respiratory related illnesses, even associated with wellness and musculoskeletal disorders, even benefits for COVID-19 recovery and flu. So there's that whole scientific literature which was sort of seeping into the popular awareness, right? So you have these messengers talking about the medical benefits using
Yeah.
sort of like super cure, but really what you're talking about is people getting together and feeling a part of like a collective and enjoying the time they spend together in a place with a healthy activity.
Uh, People feel better, or at least they report feeling better, and they also feel more centered, more just able to cope with our world is incredibly stressful,
Yeah.
and it's getting more stressful every day. And sauna is so essential to Finnish culture. It's reported to be, what is it, the happiest country in the world.
7 times in a row from the United Nations global rankings.
And they've got lots of reasons not to be the necessarily happiest country in the world, but somehow they're still making it happen. And
My
I
Finnish relatives laugh at that, by the way, but go on.
well, so I just think that the community aspect is critical. And um, when I look around Hancock and I Googled TripAdvisor, you've all
Yeah.
been TripAdvisor. It's like what are the top 10 attractions in Hancock? And what you'd think would be the number one on that list would be the Finnish-American Heritage Center. If you drive through town on your way through, you're going to drive right by it. You can't
Yep.
miss it. Well, it's number 8 on the list. It's not number one. This is a town of a population of about 4,000, 4,500 people.
Yep.
It's number 8 on the list. The top 6 items, 3 of them are the Quincy mine in one respect or
Right.
another, which
I
is
think
important.
my great grandfather worked for that mine, by the way, but go on.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, that's why the whole area is built up as it was because of the mine.
Yep.
And the other top 6 items are related to the great outdoors, which is
Yep.
great. But I have a personal belief that Hancock is missing out on it's a place you pass through on the way to get into the Keweenaw Peninsula and keep going north, rather than a place that you stay and hang out at. It's more a place you pass through than a destination. And um, and it occurred to me that the sort of public sauna offerings that are available in Minnesota are not what I would propose for Hancock. I'm proposing something that is more of a transformative destination sauna. And there are models for that. They're just not in the United States.
Yep.
And I think, and there's other models for that too. But I think it should be a place that helps to galvanize um, the tourism component for the community. But it also becomes a place of community for Hancock and for Houghton and for the greater area too. What I'm proposing has to cater equally to at least 5 different groups of people. Only one of whom is tourists, another of whom is business visitors.
Hmm.
Um, but the most important of all are residents. And then there's also, the students that I talked about at Michigan Tech. There's over 8,000 students at Michigan Tech, and there's also the faculty. And you have a student services fee at Michigan Tech, which helps to fund all sorts of endeavors that the university sponsors. They have their own ski hill, Mont Ripley.
Yeah.
Um,
That was right near where
and
my great grandparents lived.
yeah, there you go. And the you don't want the public sauna, or at least I don't think it ought to cater to just one specific demographic. I think it's got to cater to everybody equally. It's got to be, it's like yoga in that you don't go once and then check it off your list. It's a place that you keep returning to. It's part of your routine. And when we go back to the health benefits of sauna, well, think about the health benefits of yoga.
Hmm.
years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, yoga was considered much more niche than it is now, where it's sort of ubiquitous.
Yeah.
And I think this is the trajectory for public sauna in the US. I think it's going to only continue to spread and permutate. And there's all sorts of flavors of sauna which go way beyond what the Finnish example would be, where um, there's more of an entertainment factor, the Vegas approach, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something which is traditionally Finnish and very consistent with that in its offering, but it can also be fun.
Yeah.
It absolutely so.
Well,
And
when I talk to my Finnish relatives, and they're like, I talked to one of my newly found cousins. I met her for the first time last year, and they talk about what they do for fun on a Saturday, as a family. Like, even on a terrible day when they were having snow in April, they said, "Well, we have a pizza party, and then we take sauna, and then like the day was okay at that point. Like they had
yeah,
snow in April and then they took a sauna and life was good again. That was their recharge, their reset.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that was the Finnish way to deal with those terrible conditions. So now you just gave me this really great overview. So can you tell me who came to your presentation where you sort of gave your vision, and some of the highlights you made, and how did that connect with the people who came, and who came and how many came? And what day was
Well,
it, please? Give
so
date.
if you go to the Finnish-American Heritage Center, it's the smaller building. It's got a nice gallery, and then it's got an auditorium space,
Yep.
and that's where there was an hour-long sauna forum. The first 20 minutes of which was the screening of excerpts from a video that just had been produced with stories recorded of people in the region in their experiences with sauna in childhood or
Oh, very cool.
yeah. So example, one of the saunas south of Hancock that we actually visited on a tour after the forum, the fellow who was born in it still lives in that house. And when we went in to visit, it was formerly a smoke sauna. Now it's not. But
Yep.
when we went in to visit, he said his joke was, "I don't remember how warm it was when I was born in here,
And
but
and for people who don't know, saunas have been associated with all aspects of ritual life in Finland historically, and that is a traditional practice of a women giving birth to their children in saunas in more rural settings. That is authentically Finnish, and that's documented, and that's part of the Finnish cultural tradition. That's uniquely Finnish, and
well, yeah,
Estonia too, from what I understand.
absolutely. I mean, if you're a Finnish immigrant coming to the UP, first you built your sauna,
Yep.
then you built your house,
Yep.
because the sauna is the center of everything.
Yep.
And And so, in answer to your question of who was attending, it was maybe as some visitors, maybe a third were visitors, and the others were locals. And I think when asked the question, who here has been in a public sauna before, I think at least two-thirds of them raised their hands.
Okay.
But it was a mix of people. For example, and I didn't know this at the time, the Hancock city manager was in attendance.
That's a
And
nice audience person to have. That's cool.
one of the points I made in my pitch was I think this is a glaring absence for all sorts of reasons. Number two, I've seen nothing in any planning documents for the region or for the city that even use the word sauna. And one of the comments that came after in the Q&A was, well, and I think I got this right. We don't have any Finns on the city council. You guys have to start speaking up. And so, it
So
was just,
so it's got to be local politics that can drive a community thing too. So you have to have like buy-in from your local
oh,
leadership.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things that I have to do is figure out. Well, I have to figure out a couple things going forward. One is a proper survey, which is,
Yep.
picking the brains of people, both residents of Hancock, but also Houghton as well.
Yep.
because it's a, in some ways, those are distinct communities. In some ways, they all are interconnected.
Yep.
You can't build something that's like a destination thing on the scale that I'm proposing
Hmm.
without you having deep public buy-in,
Yep.
because otherwise they're going to feel like an alien spaceship landed on their
Well,
shores.
well, that is one, that is a model of tourism, right? That is one model. The alien spaceship, the large external corporate entity comes, lands on your planet, and builds its resource, which is tourism, right? And you're saying that you can have those outsiders come and enjoy and partake in the community, but have the community feel ownership and be active customers.
Absolutely. It has to be, for example, affordable. It can't be like the model that has inspired me or served as one of my inspirations is in Helsinki.
Yep.
Uh, and again, I'll pronounce it wrong. Lolu.
Le.
Okay. Uh, in Helsinki, they're celebrating their 8th anniversary,
Yep.
and it's the highest profile public sauna that I'm aware of in Finland.
Yep.
And it's more than just the sauna offerings itself, which include the smoke sauna and the conventional wood sauna, and also a private sauna,
Yep.
which would, and those accommodate between the three of them like up to 50 people at any one time.
Okay.
But it's also a restaurant offering
Yep.
and a bar
A
and
bar. Yep. And I've seen the videos of the guys with their towels coming up to the bar, right? Like
yeah,
they've just come out of the sauna and they belly up to the bar.
yep, and people want to be there because it's a community activity spot where how can you not be enjoying yourself? You've got
Right. Right.
it's
Like it's for people who don't know, it's a very nice, beautiful Finnish wooden building. It's sitting on the harbor. So it's sort of near, it's actually, I believe it's near like a port area, but it's this nicely used front space that's fronting the water. So you have access to the seawater.
right. You can swim in it. You can do a cold plunge and go back in. And the architecture was done with a lot of attention to, what's the most ecological way we can build this.
Right.
It's reclaimed wood that they specifically want to age and turn into a color that makes it look like from a distance like a rock on
Yep.
the shoreline rather than a gleaming tower or anything. Just
Yep.
it's meant to integrate and not get in the way. And but it's also
And I'm going to add that they're very good at social media marketing. They've got people coming from all over the world. You've got all kinds of YouTube videos that show visitors there. So they've tapped into the local market, which are locals, and locals do go to places like this. And then the visitor who's never done it and say, let's try it out.
yes, absolutely. And so again, they're appealing to all these different groups, visitors, locals in equal measure.
Yep.
uh, Local business people, it doesn't matter. It's everyone is welcome. The price of admission for a community 2 hour session there, I think on a weekday is like 24 euros.
Right. And that's a competitive price. Like there's Helsinki, like today, I just started my day. I subscribe to all sorts of social media feeds, and there's one called My Helsinki, which is great. And it was pitching the 6 community saunas that you could tap into in Helsinki. That's one of them, right?
Yeah,
And there's another one that's right across, just sort of at the other side of the harbor. It's called Alas Pool. And Alas Pool features an outdoor swimming pool right next to the water, a seawater pool, and then the sauna. So you can jump out of the sauna, take a nice stroll with a beautiful view of downtown Helsinki, and then not jump, but you immerse yourself slowly. You don't jump into cold water. You go slowly, and then you get the dose of the cold seawater. And then you come back out and you lounge outside, and that's what they do there.
yeah.
It's similar.
And so by all accounts, the example of Lolu is a great success.
Yep.
It's 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 got steady business every day, and I'm pretty sure that the restaurant offering and the bar offering help to subsidize
Yeah.
the cost of admission for a community sauna.
And I think it's important for Americans to know, they probably don't know this, but community saunas in Finland are places that have those side businesses, right? So I went to Tampere in the winter where I visited three of my newly found cousins, and I went to the oldest community sauna in Tampere, which is the second largest city in Finland, and it's sort of south central, located between two big lakes. Over 50 saunas are there. It's the sauna capital of the world, and their community sauna is called Rajaportin, and it's an old building, wood-fired saunas. They look like caves, but you have this cute little cafe and they do drink beer. The Finns will drink beer while taking the sauna outdoors. They have coffee and they have nice little treats and baked goods. And it's lots of local people were there, like they knew each other and they were all just sort of waiting to go in. And then you go in the sauna, you come out, and then you just sort of lounge about, chatting with your neighbor, drinking whatever beverage of your choice. And then
Yeah.
you go back in, and that's how they do it. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what were the people surprised? Were people, did this sound like an alien concept, or did this sound like something that people sort of were like, yeah, that could like that sort of is us. We could see ourselves there.
There were a number of reactions. There were a couple local entrepreneurs there who I know pretty well because I've stayed at their offerings, their lodging before,
Yeah.
and and seemed like they were enthusiastic or at least complimentary about what I was proposing. One of the people on the local sauna tour, he showed off the place built by I think his father at
Uh-huh.
his homestead, and he had also been like, "This is really cool. I liked your case studies." And the case studies I cited were not just Lulu in Helsinki, but there's other case studies about placemaking,
Yep.
about heritage tourism,
Yep.
and about how uh, uh, if you this is a long way to put it, if you build it, people will come. And Helsinki, of course, is the population center of Finland. Hancock has 4,500 people. So you could make a case, Jack, this is crazy. Why would you build something that's like a destination like this when the population is so small? And it's like, well, because I want to help transform the economy. And I think there's an appetite now that was not there even 5 years ago for heritage tourism in that area. There are people coming to the Kiwa now who are willing to spend more money on whatever it is they're doing, including lodging, but also experiences. And um, I, 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 I think it could attract people. The thing about the Western UP is that it's pretty remote as far as like the closest interstate,
Yep.
right? If you want to go
Yeah,
to
it's what, 5 to 6 hours from the cities?
I think Copper Harbor, which is as far north as you can go into the lake without getting wet,
Yeah.
is 250 miles from the nearest interstate.
Okay.
And Hancock is what, about 200 miles from the nearest interstate. You have to put some work in to get there. And there are other examples, case studies of places that are sort of remote, which might be lacking because of the remoteness for various reasons. An example that I talk about a lot is in Newfoundland, Fogo Island, which is a little island off the northeastern coast of Newfoundland Island. And Fogo Island has maybe 9 or 11 small communities, mostly fishing communities, which got into big trouble after a fishing moratorium was called by the government back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
The main livelihood of Fogo Island was fishing.
Yeah.
Well, you take that away, Fogo Island was in danger of becoming, a vacant island. And
Yeah.
It's a beautiful spot. It's an amazing spot to visit, and it was really suffering. And um, Fogo Island is having a little bit of a resurgence now because of a Canadian charity called Shorefast. And Shorefast exists to bolster and kickstart the economy of Fogo Island. And their most high profile work to date is the Fogo Island Inn.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of the Fogo Island Inn, but it is one of the top 10, top three hotels in North America.
Wow.
It's a stunning hotel. You would think it would be absolutely incongruous on a tiny little fishing remote island that you have to put some work in to get to, including taking a ferry.
Maybe that's the point. It's
Well,
that's
it is it exists for one reason, which is to sustain and bolster the economy of the island.
gotcha.
And so you go back to the example of Hancock. If a destination public sauna is put in, which has a certain critical mass of offerings, I have a feeling that it'll help to not only sustain but help to transform the economy of Hancock.
Okay.
You know, the poverty level of Hancock is about 50% higher than the average in Michigan.
Yeah, it's
It-
true. Yep. Look, the data are very, sobering, right? The
yeah,
data are there.
yeah, and and I'm guilty of the same thing too, of driving through Houghton and Hancock and not really stopping to stay. I'll just keep going on to the Keweenaw, um, because okay, Quincy Mine, I've seen it. Great, check that off my list. Stop at Peterson Fish Mart, pick up some smoked salmon.
So you had said you had sort of checked off all these items on your list for when you pass through, and so what's missing?
Well, what's missing, I think, is a destination attraction,
Gotcha.
and there, don't get me wrong, there's the natural beauty and offerings of that part of Michigan, and you really ought to go sometime,
Yeah, I know.
are endless, between skiing and trail hiking, downhill biking,
Fishing.
uh, fishing, although I'm not a fisherman, so I'm not going to make any representations there. The natural beauty and the proximity to Lake Superior is amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, but there isn't in Hancock, in my humble opinion, there ought to be a major hook that snags travelers and makes them want to stop in Hancock and stay for the night. And
Yep.
I think this could serve that function.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
And you had mentioned, I think, as well that, there has to be community involvement in the sauna. So I'll just give you an example. When I was in Tampere at the really big one called Rauhaniemi, which is this really famous one. I think it was created in 1927. It's right on the big lake north of Tampere. It's called Nasijärvi, and it's this beautiful old building, two saunas, different rooms. It's very, very humble wooden building. Then it's fronting on a beautiful beach and sort of these nice granite rocks where they've built stairs that go right into the lake. And there were people there that were not Finnish, but the bulk of the people were local, right? And you had people like me, this American, obviously American because I'm speaking English, and then the other people just didn't care. And it was jammed. It was packed, right? And it was astounding to me. And then they come out of the sauna. It was 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you go jump in the lake. Then you come outside and you hang out, and that's what you do. And
yeah,
and it was authentically local. And my cousin loves it. She said, "You got to go there. I'm going to go with you, and we're going to have a good time." I was like, "Right on."
yeah,
So
yeah. What's not to love?
yeah, I know, but I'm a convert, so I'm not the audience you're trying to reach, right? So you have to win over those folks. So this has to take lots of pieces. It has to take financing, it has to take zoning issues, has to be compliant with life and safety issues. Probably there's someone who's going to worry about ADAs. The fire marshal's going to worry about, are there enough exits, right? Some people are concerned, is this place for bad activities? Sort of like, is it just sort of like for, clandestine meetups for whatever, right? That's how it is in some people's minds. So how is it that, what's going to be like the next 2 or 3 logical steps to get moving in this complex process towards turning vision into reality as you understand it?
Well, part of it is like I said before, starting to get community input, putting out a proper survey about what they would look for, hope for, be worried about in
Yep.
a sauna. Um, because I have my opinions, but I'm not a resident in Hancock, or at least
Yep.
not yet. Although believe me, that would probably be my ideal trajectory. Um, uh, so one is a survey, another is starting to cobble together a portrait of how I think it's ultimately a public private partnership
Okay.
to put this together. I mentioned the Shorefest example where, the Fogo Island Inn, which I can't afford to stay at and you can't afford to stay at, but it's profitable now after a number of years in
Yep.
operation, and 100% of the surplus revenue goes invested back into the community.
Okay.
That's not a public-private thing. It's entirely a charitable thing.
Yep.
Imagine if you went into a Goodwill that just happened to look like the Four Seasons Hotel. Well, the Fogo Island Inn makes the Four Seasons Hotel look sort of like a Goodwill by comparison. It's a stunning piece of architecture. But there are any number of entities, possible players in the in cobbling together the financing for this. I think I've talked to you about this before. The example of when you're watching, when you rent on Netflix a foreign film, you will see at the beginning of the film, before it gets going, the logos for all the different players that were involved in investing in that film, and it might be like
Yes.
10 different logos, and so it's not just Sony Pictures. It's like it's supported by all these different players,
Yeah.
and I can rattle off a list of the possible players in this sort of thing. You set aside, potential investors, possibly from Finland even,
Hmm.
and possible donors even, but there's
Yep.
also in consideration the participation of the city of Hancock, for example,
Mhm.
tax abatement,
Yep.
or get it going. There's
Yep.
also Finlandia Foundation
Yep.
National, which is not endorsing what I'm proposing, but I think might be receptive to be involved, especially since part of my proposal is that it should complement the offerings and extend the offerings of the Finnish-American Heritage Center. It should be complementary to it. It should offer
That seems
it.
logical to me.
Yeah, well, for example, in Minneapolis, there's the American Swedish Institute.
Yep.
You can be a member of the American Swedish Institute, and it's an old grand mansion,
Yep.
and it's been around for decades, and the people who run the place, sort of decided that we've got to up our offering, we've got to figure out how to our membership is dying out.
Yep.
It's the elderly Swedes, and we have to reinvigorate the youth programming and
Yep.
the adult programming, because we're competing for eyeballs with other local institutions like the
You're
Walker.
competing with this
Well,
thing.
well, even that, but Minneapolis, you've got the Walker Arts Center, and you've got the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and those are gallery and museum eyeballs that you're competing with for
Yep.
what you offer at the American Swedish Institute. And so they sort of came up with a plan for the foreseeable future, where they built an entirely complementary building to the original mansion, which extends the offerings of the mansion in every way possible,
Yep.
including a very nice gift shop, another gallery space, a proper classroom space with a kiln, um, and a large auditorium space where they can have lectures and conference meetings.
Yeah, and here in Portland we have what's called Nordia House, which is
Yep.
our local Nordic uh,
The
country,
Norwegian.
a cultural institution, and they're jammed on Sundays. They have this cafe. It's
Yeah.
packed to the gills.
If you go to the Heritage Center in Hancock, you're not going to have an opportunity to go to a cafe. There is no cafe there.
Okay.
There's the Northwind Bookstore, which
Yep.
is across the parking lot.
I
I
bought a
love
book from there by mail.
so have I. I love visiting there. But if you go to the American Swedish Institute on a Tuesday, which you know is a quieter day of the week, maybe there's nobody walking around the exhibits, but there's still people in the cafe
Right.
hanging out.
Right.
And and so it's like, where's the cafe? Was my question for the Heritage Center. It was like, if you want people to stop here, give them a hook, you know, give them something. So anyway, you had asked about what other entities might be able to participate in this sort of thing. There's the Finnish-American Chamber of Commerce of Upper Michigan. There's
Okay.
Western UP Planning and Development Region.
Cool.
Uh, there's also Visit Keweenaw, which is really for north of Hancock
Right.
and Home, but a key player in the tourism offerings for the Keweenaw Peninsula. There's also Pure Michigan, Keweenaw Peninsula. There's the Economic Development Alliance Association, which
Okay.
I've been speaking with. There's the Chamber
Cool.
of, there's a lot and then there's the Michigan Tech, whom I've not approached, but I intend to, because I think, again, I think it would be very well received by the student population. And right now, if you're a student at Michigan Tech, your number one reason to get out of Dodge is if you want to go an hour plus north to the technical skiing available at Mount Bohemia,
Yeah.
where they have a fantastic public sauna offering.
Gotcha.
And it's like, well, let's give people reason to stay in town.
Well, you know, I mean, obviously, because I'm so passionate about saunas now, I'm not gonna like. To me, it's like, well, it's obvious that this is a no-brainer, good idea that seems to promote economic development. It promotes place. It promotes healthy activities for all ages and abilities to come together. You know, it seems logical. Do you think there's going to be? Do you think there's some sort of like hidden founder, some sort of secret sauna lover out there who has a large amount of capital that would just invest in something because they're passionate about it? Do you think that's a possibility here?
I think donors are a possibility for sure.
Okay.
But there's so much groundwork I have to pursue.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with the Fin Zone, but it's another initiative in the area,
Okay.
and the it's meant to um, it's meant to be let's see, what would you say? It's like almost like a soft landing pad. If you're a business in Finland and you're looking for a gateway into the United States, the Fin Zone is meant to help facilitate that.
Okay.
As recently as 2 years ago, Houghton and Hancock have hosted delegations from Finland, you know, business people looking to figure out, you know, where should where's our place to put our first foothold?
Yep.
And so that's another thing that I'll be pursuing too
You know,
is
the other option is you can get the blessing and the official participation of the Finnish national government, which has representatives around the country, right? So they always are supportive of cultural events wherever they go, and sort of those tie-ins and connections are really important in these
yep.
sort of like creating the sort of secret sauce that can bring parties together. Like there's this sort of level of attention and interest because it's like, wow, you have a national person here interested in our little community. That is cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, I part of the appeal to me personally of Houghton and Hancock is that it takes some effort to get there.
Yeah.
It's you don't fly in and into, you can fly into Minneapolis, St. Paul, and you're 5 miles away from the Mall of America and from every other offering in the Twin Cities.
Right.
The Twin Cities is still a pretty small metro area for what it has to offer. it takes some work to get to Houghton and Hancock.
Yep,
Yeah, there's a tiny airport you can fly to in Houghton, but
yep,
they can get weathered out.
yep, yep.
And it's
Okay. Well,
it,
what's tell us, because we're sort of going to be uh, winding this down shortly. What's the next step that if people are interested in this, and then how is it that they could get involved if they wanted to be involved? We can include some links or contacts as well when I post this on my website.
I would ask them to get in touch with me directly, frankly,
Okay.
because um, I, I'm not trying to pursue a business where I purvey public sauna anywhere. I'm focused specifically on Hancock.
Okay. So
Um,
we'll add that. We'll get that contact information from you, your preference. I'll just drop that in on the sort of the plug that we do for the podcasts on the different channels. We'll include your preferences there for contacting you. Because
okay.
someone out there, it's possible is going to be interested and has something to bring to the game. Could be a builder, it could be some other person who wants to promote tourism or wants to even move there. You never know.
I don't ever know. And the things that you've mentioned about fire hazards and permitting and so forth are absolutely that's going to be a process. But I think ultimately Hancock would be receptive to the city of Hancock would be receptive to helping to make things happen. Um, Again, if the community supports it, and that's key, if
Hmm.
we emphasize it, if the community supports it, it'll happen. The thing I'm trying to avoid is somebody, not that I have anything against them, but somebody pulling in a a a sauna on a trailer and parking it in town and saying, okay, now we have a public sauna in Hancock. That's not the
No.
transformative the thing that I'm trying to evangelize about.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
I
No,
think,
that makes total sense to me. Well, I'm going to be listening and watching and looking out for the next chapters in your story, and I think there's probably a lot of others out there who are interested in it. And just given on the demographics and data you shared at that presentation about the growth of sauna interest in the USA as a sort of what growing 6% a year. I think you quoted a figure like this. It's a remarkable, dramatic increase in sauna use, sauna businesses, sauna this, sauna that in the USA. It's the chances of this sort of getting more buzz, I think, is going to be natural. You said, yeah, you had mentioned there was 6% projected growth through 2027, I think, in your presentation. So
yeah,
hopefully that will
the,
lead towards people coming together around this vision. And that's local and owned by the people.
yeah, I don't, there's 100 different ways to come at it, but the important point for me is that it's got to have the community buy-in and support, and it's got to serve as a genuine community center. And I think it would take off, but
All right. Well, good. And then finally, Jack, so anything else you're working on related to saunas that we want to know about, or is this just sort of like your sort of passion right now that is taking your time? Is there any other thing you're doing in the world of sauna that we want to know
well,
about?
well, well, my background is in the advertising world. I work as a producer of like television campaigns, and so I like to think of myself as analogous to a wedding planner.
Yep.
So when you go to a great wedding, the last thing you're going to think about is the wedding planner. You're right. You're going to have a great time. It's going to be a great ceremony, great dancing, DJ, whatever. The
Right.
last thing you think about is the wedding planner. And um, however, if the wedding goes poorly, it's going to be, well, where's the wedding planner? What's wrong? So my DNA is partially about problem solving,
Yep.
and I feel like what I'm proposing could solve a number of different problems at the same time,
Yep.
both for the economy, and for tourism, and for, if they would have me, the Finnish-American Heritage Center's offerings, um, and again, you can't think of a more beautiful place to make this happen than in Houghton and Hancock
Well,
area.
one thing you got going for you is that Finland has had great brand marketing the past 7 years. It's the happiest country in the world, and people are sort of getting the idea that saunas probably have something to do with happiness, right? So I think you've got this sort of natural global marketing benefit that you didn't create that is existing out there separately that complements where this is going. So maybe tapping a little bit into that Finnish magic, and then seeing if that can be imported.
I'll give you one quick example. Marketing will not solve a problem unless the offering is worthy.
Yeah.
But it's just marketing is about, drawing your attention to something that once you find out about it, if it doesn't live up to expectation, the marketing didn't matter. And so remember back decades ago when nobody had tattoos?
Yeah.
Like tattoos are the thing. Everyone's got tattoos now, but it used to be the only people that had tattoos were like sailors, right? Otherwise, a tattoo was this weird thing. And there was a print ad for Harley Davidson that an agency I worked for did, which was well received. And it was a picture of, a biker's arm with a Harley tattoo on it. And the headline was, "When was the last time you felt this strongly about anything?" So what they were doing in that ad was speaking to not you or me. They were speaking to their own constituency, the people who already ride Harley Davidson motorcycles.
Yeah.
And they ate it up. They loved it. The marketing, the positioning was all about talking to those people who already are in love with the brand.
Yeah.
And so it was just an example of the marketing was, don't try to interest new people. Just show to people that there's something cool going on, and maybe they'll want to check into it.
Gotcha. All right.
Anyway,
Well, I will say, I mentioned your concept to my colleague who's Estonian, and his first, I mentioned the idea, and his response was, "Rudy, we need to move there."
well, tell you what, if you're going to come our way, I'll escort you up to there,
It's a
because
deal.
if you've got roots there, you owe it to yourself to check it out.
I do. That's part of my plan. I need to visit where my great grandparents lived for decades, right outside. It was called Ripley, right by the ski hill. And I just need to complete that chapter of my story. I'm working on a new book, and I'm working on the title, but it's all about this sort of immersion in my Finnishness, right? And that's where I'm at in my life. So this is really fun for me. And then finding my family over there in Finland makes me really very connected. And then knowing there's something about my body that just loves sauna. And I always say, is this my Finnish DNA, or is this just because saunas are just an inherently pleasurable thing that most people can like? And I'll end this on what my Finnish relative said. He said he thinks that saunas can be enjoyed by everybody around the world. You don't have to be Finnish. So that was his message. So hopefully his message will resonate with the folks in Hancock, and then they'll buy into this.
We'll see.
All right. Well, it's been great meeting you, Jack. Thank you for joining us. And we'll highlight some ways for people to get in touch with you. And if this thing moves forward, maybe we can have you back and you can give us an update on how the folks in Hancock are moving forward with this idea.
Thanks so much.
All right, Jack. Talk to you later. Thank you again. Kiitos vielä kerran for spending time with us today on the Finding Finland podcast. Be sure to visit us for more conversations about all things Finland. Remember, you can find all of the podcast episodes on your favorite podcasting platform by visiting the Finding Finland webpage. See you again soon.